Her ex's cruel laughter cut through the room, humiliating her in front of everyone. Then a silver-haired millionaire stormed in, kissed her before 200 stunned witnesses, and changed everything. What was his real motive? Welcome back, my amazing family and friends. If you're ready to dive into this unforgettable story, hit that subscribe button and drop a comment telling me where you're watching from. Tomorrow, I'll bring you another incredible tale you absolutely can't miss. Let's get started, and don't forget to like and share to help our community grow. The October rain had finally stopped when Rachel Bennett stepped out of the black cab onto the glistening cobblestones of Berkeley Square. She smoothed down her emerald silk dress, the one she'd bought 3 months ago for an anniversary that never came, and took a steadying breath. The dress still fit perfectly, hugging her curves in all the right places, but tonight it felt like armor rather than celebration. Come on, Rachel. You belong here. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of La Lumiere, London's newest culinary sensation, she could see the warm glow of crystal chandeliers and the elegant dance of waiters in black tie. Her best friend Emma had insisted on this dinner, practically dragging her out of the flat she'd barely left since the breakup 6 weeks ago. You need to remember who you were before Marcus, Emma had said that morning, holding up the green dress like a flag of war. That brilliant, confident woman who started her own marketing firm at 28. Not this ghost who eats ice cream for breakfast. Rachel had protested, but weakly, because Emma was right. Marcus Hartley had taken more than just 3 years of her life when he'd left. He'd taken her certainty, her spark, the easy confidence she'd once worn as naturally as perfume. She pushed through the heavy brass doors, and warmth enveloped her immediately. The restaurant hummed with the low murmur of England's elite. Politicians, actors, business tycoons, all gathered in their Saturday evening finery. The maître d' smiled with practiced charm and led her through the maze of tables toward the back corner where Emma waited. But Rachel's steps faltered halfway across the room. No. 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 There, at a large circular table near the wine cellar, sat Marcus. Her Marcus. Except he wasn't hers anymore, was he? His sandy hair was styled differently, swept back in that careless way he'd always claimed to hate. He wore a navy suit she'd never seen, probably bespoke from Savile Row, and his arm rested possessively around the shoulders of a blonde woman who looked barely 23. Rachel's stomach plummeted. Emma had sworn she'd checked. They were supposed to be safe here. Marcus hadn't seen her yet. She could turn around, flee into the rainy London night, preserve whatever dignity remained. But her feet wouldn't move. She stood frozen in the center of the restaurant, a deer caught in headlights, as conversations continued around her like water flowing past a stone. Then Marcus looked up. Their eyes met across the crowded room, and Rachel watched his expression shift, surprise, then something uglier. Satisfaction. His lips curved into a smirk she'd never seen during their relationship, one that made her skin crawl. He leaned over and whispered something to the blonde, who turned to stare at Rachel with undisguised curiosity. Then Marcus stood, and Rachel's heart began to hammer against her ribs. Move. Just move. But she couldn't. Not when he was walking toward her, that cruel smile growing wider with each step. Not when the conversations around them began to quiet, people sensing drama the way sharks sense blood in water. Rachel, Marcus said loudly, his voice projecting across the suddenly hushed restaurant. What a lovely surprise. She found her voice, though it came out smaller than she'd intended. Marcus. I didn't know you'd be here. Clearly. His eyes raked over her dress, and she felt exposed, vulnerable. Still wearing that old thing? I remember telling you green wasn't your color. Makes you look rather washed out, doesn't it? Heat flooded her cheeks. Around them, she sensed rather than saw people watching, phones probably already recording. This would be online within minutes. The humiliation would be preserved forever in digital amber. I should go, Rachel whispered, hating the weakness in her voice. No, no, stay, Marcus continued, his tone dripping with false concern. I want you to meet Charlotte. Charlotte, darling, this is Rachel. The one I told you about. Worked so much she forgot she had a boyfriend. Career woman, you know the type. He laughed, and several people at his table joined in. Though I see business isn't going as well as you'd hoped, is it? I heard about the Morrison account. Shame, that. Rachel felt tears prickling her eyes. How did he know about Morrison? That account loss had nearly bankrupted her small firm. She'd told no one except Emma. Have you ever been publicly humiliated by someone you trusted? What would you do in Rachel's situation? Share your thoughts below. Marcus, please, she managed, her voice breaking. Please what? He leaned closer, and she could smell his familiar cologne, the one she'd bought him for Christmas. You wanted to come to places like this, remember? Wanted to network, make connections. Well, here you are. Quite the connection, isn't it? The restaurant had gone completely silent now. Rachel could feel 200 pairs of eyes on her skin like brands. Her vision blurred with tears she refused to let fall. Not here. Not in front of all these people. Not in front of him. Then a voice cut through the silence, smooth as aged whiskey and utterly calm. There you are, darling. I've been waiting. Rachel turned, confusion cutting through her humiliation, and found herself staring at a man she'd never seen before in her life. He was tall, well over 6 feet, with silver-grey hair swept back from a face that belonged in a classic film. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw, and eyes the color of storm clouds that somehow held both ice and fire. He wore a charcoal suit that cost more than her monthly rent, and he moved with the easy confidence of someone who'd never doubted his place in any room. But it was his smile that struck her, warm and genuine, as if they truly were lovers separated for too long. Rachel started, but the stranger was already beside her, his hand settling on the small of her back with gentle propriety. Sorry I'm late, he said, his accent pure British aristocracy. Conference call with Tokyo ran long. His eyes shifted to Marcus, and something in his expression hardened. I don't believe we've met. Bob Ashford. He extended his hand. Marcus hesitated, clearly thrown. Marcus Hartley. I was just. Rachel and I were just. Old friends. Bob supplied smoothly, his hand still resting protectively on Rachel's back. She could feel the warmth of his palm through the silk, anchoring her to reality. How nice. Rachel's mentioned you, I think. Briefly. The dismissal in his tone was subtle but unmistakable. Marcus's jaw tightened. Actually, we dated for 3 years. Until quite recently, in fact. Bob's expression didn't change, but somehow the single syllable conveyed profound disinterest. Well, the past is the past, isn't it? He turned to Rachel, and the warmth flooded back into his features. Shall we head to our table? I took the liberty of ordering that wine you love. Rachel's mind reeled. Who was this man? Why was he helping her? But looking into his eyes, she saw something unexpected, a silent plea. Trust me. Play along. And perhaps it was the humiliation still burning in her chest, or the way Marcus's face had shifted from smug satisfaction to confusion, or simply the desperate need to salvage some shred of dignity from this nightmare, but Rachel found herself nodding. Yes, she heard herself say. I'd love that. Excellent. Bob smiled, and it transformed his entire face, making him look younger, almost boyish despite the silver hair. Then, before Rachel could process what was happening, he cupped her face with both hands, his palms warm, his touch surprisingly gentle, and leaned in. His lips met hers, and the restaurant disappeared. It wasn't a performance kiss, wasn't the chaste peck she might have expected from a stranger playing a role. It was deep, thorough, claiming. His fingers slid into her hair, tilting her head back slightly, and she found herself responding on pure instinct, her hands coming up to grip his lapels. He tasted of mint and black coffee, and kissed like a man who knew exactly what he was doing. The world narrowed to the point of contact between them, his mouth moving over hers with devastating skill, the solid wall of his chest beneath her palms, the way his thumb traced her jawline with unexpected tenderness. When he finally pulled back, Rachel's knees had turned to water. The restaurant erupted. Not in scandal or shock, but in something else entirely. A few people applauded. Others laughed with delight. The rigid silence that had accompanied Marcus's cruelty shattered into a buzz of excited conversation. Well, Bob said, his voice pitched low enough that only Rachel could hear, though his eyes never left hers. That should handle that. Then, louder, he turned to Marcus, keeping one arm around Rachel's waist. Lovely to meet you, Harry. Marcus, her ex corrected through gritted teeth. Right. Marcus. Bob's smile was polite, distant. Do enjoy your evening. He guided Rachel away, moving through the tables with the ease of someone who'd never been denied anything. Rachel risked one glance back. Marcus stood frozen where they'd left him, his face flushed red, while Charlotte whispered urgently in his ear. Around them, people had returned to their meals, but she caught more than one approving smile directed her way, a few sympathetic nods from other women. The humiliation was still there, but it had transformed into something else. Something that felt almost like power. Bob led her to a corner booth, not where Emma was sitting, she realized with a start, but a private table set for two with a bottle of champagne already chilling in a silver bucket. The maître d' pulled out her chair with a knowing smile. "Mr. Ashford, madam. Your usual table." As she sank into the plush velvet seat, reality crashed back in. She turned to Bob, who was settling across from her with the casual grace of a man entirely comfortable with what he'd just done. "Who are you?" Rachel whispered, her fingers touching her lips, which still tingled from his kiss. Bob poured champagne into two flutes, his expression unreadable. Someone who's seen that particular performance before. He handed her a glass. "And someone who's always hated bullies." "But why?" "Because," he interrupted gently, "no one deserves to be humiliated like that. Especially not in my restaurant." Rachel's eyes widened. "Your restaurant?" Bob's smile was almost apologetic. "I own La Lumiere, among other things." He raised his glass. "I'm sorry we had to meet under such circumstances. But I'm not sorry I kissed you." The champagne bubbles sparkled in the candlelight, and Rachel realized her hands had stopped shaking. For the first time in 6 weeks, she felt something other than grief. She felt alive. Rachel took a sip of champagne, letting the bubbles dance across her tongue as she tried to organize her scattered thoughts. Across the table, Bob watched her with those storm-gray eyes, patient and undemanding, as if he had all the time in the world. "You own this restaurant," she said finally, needing to anchor herself in facts. "And you just kissed a complete stranger to save her from embarrassment." "I did," he confirmed, swirling his own champagne. "Though I should clarify, I've seen you before." Rachel's heart skipped. "What?" "You came here 3 weeks ago. Tuesday evening. You sat at the bar for nearly 2 hours, nursing a single glass of Malbec and working on your laptop." His voice was matter-of-fact, but something in his expression had softened. "You were crying." Very quietly, very carefully, making sure no one noticed. "But I noticed." The memory rushed back, that terrible Tuesday when she'd received the letter from Morrison Industries officially terminating their contract. She'd wandered London for hours afterward, unable to face her empty flat, and had somehow ended up here. She'd ordered the wine because Marcus had always hated Malbec, called it pedestrian. That night, it had tasted like freedom. "I wanted to say something then," Bob continued, "but you left before I could work up the courage. I've been hoping you'd come back." "That's..." Rachel trailed off, unsure whether to be flattered or disturbed. "That's quite observant. My ex-wife used to say I noticed everything except what mattered." His smile turned rueful. She wasn't entirely wrong. The vulnerability in those words surprised her. Here was a man who clearly commanded respect, who owned one of London's most exclusive restaurants, who just kissed her senseless in front of 200 people, and he was admitting failure. It made him suddenly, startlingly human. "How long ago?" Rachel asked. "The divorce." 2 years. We were married for 15. Bob's fingers traced the stem of his champagne flute. "Catherine wanted children. I wanted to build an empire. By the time I realized she'd been right about priorities, she'd already left. Married a history teacher from Kent. They have twins now." "I'm sorry." "Don't be. She's happy. That's what matters." He looked up, and the intensity in his gaze made Rachel's breath catch. "But it taught me something important. When you see something worth reaching for, you reach. You don't wait. You don't calculate the perfect moment. You just act." Is that what tonight was? Acting on impulse? Yes. No hesitation, no apology. "I saw him hurting you, and something in me just snapped. I've watched too many people I care about suffer at the hands of small, cruel men. I wasn't going to watch it happen again." A waiter appeared then, placing plates before them, pan-seared scallops that looked like art, garnished with microgreens and a sauce that caught the candlelight. Rachel couldn't remember ordering, but Bob must have arranged it while she was processing everything. "I texted your friend," Bob said, answering her unspoken question. Emma. Yes? She's at table 7, watching us like a hawk and trying very hard not to squeal. I promised her I wasn't a madman and that you were safe. She's ordered the tasting menu and seems quite content. Despite everything, Rachel laughed, a real laugh that bubbled up from somewhere deep she'd thought Marcus had broken. You think of everything. Not everything. If I did, I would have found a way to meet you properly 3 weeks ago. Would have saved us both this dramatic production. He cut into a scallop with surgical precision. Though I'll admit, the kiss was rather nice. Heat flooded Rachel's cheeks. You can't just say things like that. Why not? It's true. His eyes met hers, direct and unashamed. I'm 52 years old, Rachel. I've learned that life's too short for games. I find you fascinating. I have since I saw you sitting at my bar, refusing to let the world see you break. That takes strength most people never develop. You don't know anything about me, Rachel protested weakly. I know you started your own marketing firm at 28. I know you lost a major client recently, but you're still fighting. I know you have a friend loyal enough to drag you out of isolation and smart enough to text me back immediately when I introduced myself just now. He paused. And I know that the man who humiliated you tonight was a fool to let you go. Bob is being incredibly direct and honest. Do you think Rachel should trust him, or is this too much too fast? What would you do? Rachel set down her fork, her appetite vanishing beneath a wave of conflicting emotions. This is insane. 2 hours ago, I was hiding in my flat. Now I'm having dinner with a stranger who kissed me in front of half of London's social elite. Tomorrow, this will be all over social media. Marcus will see that you've moved on spectacularly, Bob interrupted gently. And more importantly, you'll see it. Rachel, I'm not asking you to marry me. I'm asking you to have dinner. To talk. To remember that you're still here, still standing, still absolutely remarkable. You kissed me, she whispered. I did. And I'd very much like to do it again, if you'll allow it. But only if you want that too. He leaned back, giving her space. You're in control here. You always were. Tonight, you have all the power. You can finish this lovely meal, let me call you a car, and never see me again. Or you can take a chance. Let me take you to see something beautiful. Let tonight be the start of something rather than just the end of your humiliation. His smile was crooked, uncertain, the first crack in his confident facade. I'm rather hoping for the second option, but I'll respect whatever you choose. Rachel looked at him, really looked. At the silver in his hair that spoke of experience, the lines around his eyes that suggested a life well lived, the hands that had held her face with such careful tenderness. She thought about Marcus, probably still seething at his table, his petty victory snatched away. She thought about her empty flat, the ice cream in her freezer, the emails she'd been avoiding. She thought about the way Bob's kiss had made her feel, seen, desired, alive. What did you want to show me? She asked. The smile that transformed Bob's face was like sunrise breaking through storm clouds. The view from the roof. On clear nights, you can see all of London spread out like diamonds on velvet. It's why I bought this building. He stood, offering his hand. The rain's stopped. The stars are out. And I promise, no more surprises unless you ask for them. Rachel stared at his outstretched hand. This was madness. This was reckless. This was everything her careful, controlled self would never do. She took his hand. His fingers closed around hers, warm, strong, certain, and he pulled her gently to her feet. As they moved through the restaurant, Rachel caught Emma's eye. Her friend was grinning like the Cheshire Cat, giving her an enthusiastic thumbs up. At the table near the wine cellar, Marcus watched them go, his expression thunderous. Charlotte had turned away from him, scrolling through her phone with evident disinterest. Rachel didn't look back. Bob led her through a door marked private, up a narrow staircase lit by soft sconces, and finally through another door that opened onto the rooftop. And stopped breathing. He'd been right about the view. London sprawled before them in a glittering tapestry, the Thames a ribbon of reflected light, Big Ben glowing golden in the distance, the London Eye turning slowly against the night sky. The rain had washed the air clean, and above them, stars pierced the darkness. Oh, Rachel whispered. I come up here when the world gets too loud, Bob said quietly, still holding her hand. When I need to remember what matters. Beauty. Wonder. The fact that we're all just small pieces of something much larger. They stood in silence for a long moment, and Rachel felt something shifting inside her, the tight, hard knot of pain that had lived in her chest since Marcus left beginning, finally, to loosen. Thank you, she said. For tonight. For the kiss. For this. For reminding me that I'm still remarkable. Bob supplied. He turned to face her, and in the starlight, his eyes were soft. Rachel, you never stopped being remarkable. You just forgot for a little while. How can you possibly know that? You don't even know me. Then let me know you. He raised their joined hands, pressed a kiss to her knuckles, old-fashioned, courtly. Have coffee with me tomorrow. Tell me about your business, your dreams, what makes you laugh. Let me prove that not all men are like the one downstairs. Rachel's throat tightened with unexpected emotion. What if this is just adrenaline? What if tomorrow, in daylight, this all seems like a beautiful mistake? Then it will be a beautiful mistake we made together, Bob said simply. But Rachel? I don't think it's a mistake. I think it's the first honest thing that's happened to either of us in a very long time. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of rain and possibility. Somewhere below, the city hummed with life, millions of people living their small dramas, their private heartbreaks, their unexpected joys. And on this rooftop, under these stars, Rachel Bennett made a choice. She stepped closer to Bob Ashford, rose on her toes, and kissed him. This time, it was her choice. Her desire. Her leap into the unknown. And when he wrapped his arms around her, pulling her close with a reverence that made her chest ache, she finally understood what Emma had been trying to tell her all along. Marcus hadn't broken her. He'd just made her forget, temporarily, who she was. But she was remembering now. The coffee shop Bob chose was nothing like La Lumiere. Tucked into a quiet corner of Notting Hill, it was small and warm, with mismatched furniture and walls covered in local artwork. The kind of place where people actually lived rather than performed. Rachel arrived 10 minutes early, her stomach a tangle of nerves. She'd barely slept, replaying the kiss on the rooftop over and over in her mind. At 3 a.m., she'd checked social media, a mistake. Photos of Bob kissing her in the restaurant had indeed gone viral, with headlines like Mystery Woman Steals Millionaire's Heart and Restaurant Mogul's Public Display Shocks Mayfair Elite. Her phone had exploded. Texts from clients she'd thought were lost. Emails from potential investors. Even a message from Morrison Industries asking to revisit discussions. Marcus had apparently called 17 times. She'd blocked him after the 5th voicemail, each more desperate than the last. The door chimed, and Bob walked in. He wore jeans, actual jeans, and a simple grey sweater that made his eyes look like pewter. His silver hair was slightly mussed, as if he'd run his hands through it repeatedly, and when he spotted her, his entire face lit up. You came, he said, sliding into the seat across from her. I was half convinced I'd dreamed the whole thing. I'm still not entirely sure I didn't, Rachel admitted. Bob, my phone has been ringing non-stop. There are photographers outside my building. The entire internet thinks we're together. He reached across the table, covering her hand with his. Would that be so terrible? We don't even know each other. Then let's fix that. His thumb traced circles on her wrist, a touch so gentle it made her heart ache. I'm Robert James Ashford. Everyone calls me Bob because Robert makes me sound like my father, and we had a complicated relationship. I'm 52. I own 3 restaurants, a hotel in Bath, and a vineyard in France that loses money every year but makes wine good enough that I don't care. I hate oysters despite owning restaurants that serve them. I read historical fiction before bed. And I haven't felt this nervous since I was 16 and asked Sarah Mitchell to the school dance. Despite her anxiety, Rachel smiled. Did she say yes? She did. We dated for 3 months until she dumped me for a rugby player named Trevor. He grinned. Your turn. Rachel took a breath. Rachel Marie Bennett. 29. I started Bennett Marketing Solutions 3 years ago because I was tired of making other people rich with my ideas. I survived on instant noodles and ambition for the first 18 months. I love terrible reality TV but lie and say I'm watching documentaries. I cry at dog food commercials. And yesterday was the first time I felt like myself since Marcus left. Bob's expression softened. Tell me about him. The real story, not the public humiliation. So, she did. The words spilled out. How Marcus had been charming at first, supportive even. How gradually, almost imperceptibly, his support had turned to criticism. Too focused on work. Not domestic enough. Too ambitious. Not feminine enough. How he'd isolated her from friends, made her doubt her instincts, convinced her that her success was somehow threatening to their relationship. And the worst part. Rachel's voice cracked. I started believing him. Started making myself smaller. When he left, he said I'd prioritized my career over us. But the truth is, I'd nearly destroyed my career trying to be what he wanted, and he left anyway. For someone younger. Someone who hadn't lost her softness. Bob's jaw tightened, but his voice remained gentle. He was intimidated by you. Or I really was too much. No. Bob's hand squeezed hers with sudden intensity. Rachel, listen to me. Men like Marcus are terrified of powerful women because your success highlights their own inadequacy. He didn't leave because you were too much. He left because he was too little. Tears pricked Rachel's eyes. You don't know that. I do. Because I was almost that man once. Bob's confession hung between them, raw and honest. When Catherine asked for children, I said not yet. Business was growing. I needed to focus. When she asked again 2 years later, same answer. Then 5 years. Then 10. I convinced myself, and tried to convince her, that she was being unreasonable. That if she really loved me, she'd understand. But she did love you, Rachel said quietly. She did. She loved me enough to realize that I was never going to choose her over my empire. So, she chose herself instead. Bob's eyes glistened. Best decision she ever made. And the worst day of my life when I realized what I'd lost. Not just her, but the life we could have built. Is that why you helped me? Guilt. No. Bob stood abruptly, moving around the table to sit beside her in the booth. I helped you because watching you stand there, trying so hard to be strong while that small, petty man tore you down, it broke something in me. Made me think about all the times I'd watched Catherine diminish herself to fit into my world. All the times I'd let her. He cupped her face, the gesture now familiar, achingly tender. You don't need saving, Rachel. You never did. But I needed to do something good. Something that mattered more than profit margins and Michelin stars. And then you kissed me back on that rooftop, and I realized. What? Rachel whispered. That maybe we both deserve a second chance. Not at who we were, but at who we could be. His forehead pressed against hers. I know this is fast. I know it's probably insane. But Rachel, I haven't stopped thinking about you. Not for a single moment since you walked into my restaurant 3 weeks ago with tears you wouldn't let fall. Bob. I'm not Marcus. I won't make you smaller. I won't punish you for your strength. His voice dropped to a rough whisper. I want to see you build your business into something extraordinary. I want to celebrate every victory and help you weather every setback. I want to be the person who reminds you how remarkable you are on the days you forget. Rachel's breath caught. That's a lot for a second date. It is. Too much. She should say yes. Should protect her battered heart. Should be practical, careful, controlled. Instead, she kissed him. Bob is offering Rachel everything Marcus never could. But is it too soon? Can people really change? Share your thoughts on second chances and new beginnings. This kiss was different from the others. Slower, deeper, weighted with possibility and promise. Bob's hand slid into her hair, and Rachel felt herself melting into him, into this moment, into the terrifying hope that maybe, just maybe, good things could still happen. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Bob smiled against her lips. So that's a yes to more coffee. Rachel laughed, really laughed, the sound bright and unbroken. That's a yes to more everything. Outside the window, London moved on, indifferent, eternal. But inside this small coffee shop in Notting Hill, 2 broken people began the careful work of becoming whole. Together. 3 months later, Rachel stood in the conference room of Bennett Marketing Solutions' new office space in Shoreditch. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the London skyline, and the space hummed with creative energy. 6 new employees working at sleek desks, phones ringing with opportunity rather than desperation. The Morrison account had returned, along with 3 others. But more importantly, Rachel had learned to say no. No to clients who undervalued her work. No to people who demanded she shrink herself to make them comfortable. No to anything that didn't align with the woman she was becoming. Her phone buzzed. A text from Bob. Dinner at 7? I'm cooking. Fair warning, it will be pretentious and involve foam. She smiled, typing back, your foam is the only pretentious thing I'll tolerate. See you at 7. 3 months. 90 days of discovering that healthy love felt nothing like what she'd had with Marcus. Bob challenged her, certainly, pushed her to dream bigger, to trust herself more fully. But he never diminished her. Never made her success about his ego. When she'd landed the Hastings and Gray account, her biggest client yet, he'd shown up at her office with champagne and genuine joy in his eyes. Ms. Bennett. Her assistant, Jamie, poked his head in. There's someone here to see you. Says it's urgent. A Marcus Hartley. Rachel's stomach dropped, then settled. She glanced at her reflection in the window, tailored navy suit, hair in a professional twist, shoulders back. She looked like power. She felt like it too. Send him in, she said calmly. And Jamie? Stay close. Marcus entered like a man walking to his execution. The past 3 months hadn't been kind to him. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his suit rumpled. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and he'd lost weight, the sharp angles of his face more pronounced now, almost harsh. Rachel. His voice cracked on her name. Marcus. She didn't offer him a seat, didn't smile. You have 5 minutes. I made a mistake. The words tumbled out desperately. The biggest mistake of my life. Charlotte. She was nothing. A midlife crisis, ego, I don't know. But she's gone now, and I've been thinking about how my business is thriving. Rachel's voice was ice. About how the woman you publicly humiliated is now dating one of England's most successful entrepreneurs. About how all the clients you claimed I'd drive away are actually flocking to me. Marcus flinched. That's not fair. Fair. Rachel laughed, sharp and bitter. You want to talk about fair? You spent 3 years making me feel inadequate. Too ambitious. Too focused. Not soft enough. Not domestic enough. Never enough. Marcus. And when I finally started believing your poison, you left for someone who hadn't been broken yet. I was scared, he said, and tears actually filled his eyes. You were becoming so successful, and I felt like I was losing you. No. You were losing control of me. There's a difference. Rachel moved to the window, looking out at the city that had witnessed both her humiliation and her resurrection. You didn't love me, Marcus. You loved the version of me that made you feel big. The moment I started actually becoming who I was meant to be, you couldn't handle it. But we were good together once, Marcus pleaded. Remember? Those first months, we were happy. We could have that again. I've changed, Rachel. Seeing you with him, seeing what I lost. You didn't lose me, Rachel interrupted, turning to face him. Her voice was steady, strong. I lost myself trying to keep you. And the only good thing you ever did for me was leave. Because your absence taught me what I never learned in your presence, that I don't need someone to complete me. I was already whole. I just needed to remember. Marcus's face crumpled. So that's it? You're choosing him. I'm choosing me, Rachel corrected gently. Bob is part of my life because he celebrates who I am, not despite it. He doesn't feel threatened by my success, he's genuinely happy for it. When I work late, he brings me dinner instead of making me feel guilty. When I'm scared, he reminds me I'm strong instead of exploiting that fear to control me. She walked to the door, held it open. I forgive you, Marcus. Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. But I will never forget what you did. How you made me feel. And I will certainly never go back. You'll regret this, Marcus said, anger finally bleeding through his desperation as he moved toward the door. When the novelty wears off, when he realizes you're still the same workaholic who can't balance. Jamie, Rachel called, and her assistant appeared instantly. Please escort Mr. Hartley out. and add him to the building's no-access list. Marcus opened his mouth, closed it, then walked out without another word. Rachel watched him go, waiting for the grief, the doubt, the old familiar ache of loss. It never came. Instead, she felt light. Free. As if the last thread connecting her to that diminished version of herself had finally snapped. Her phone buzzed again. Bob. Change of plans. Come to La Lumiere instead. I have a surprise. Rachel's heart lifted. I hate surprises. You'll like this one. Trust me. The restaurant was closed when Rachel arrived at 7, the private event sign displayed prominently on the door. But it swung open at her touch, and she stepped into a space transformed. Candles covered every surface, hundreds of them, their flames dancing in the darkened restaurant. Rose petals formed a path through the tables, and soft music played from hidden speakers. But it was the rooftop access door standing open, glowing with warm light, that drew her forward. Bob, she called, climbing the familiar stairs. The rooftop had been transformed into something from a fairy tale. String lights crisscrossed overhead, creating a canopy of stars. A table for two sat in the center, covered in white linen and more candles. And beside it stood Bob, wearing the same charcoal suit he'd worn that first night, his silver hair gleaming in the candlelight. You said you hated surprises, he said, nervous energy vibrating through his carefully controlled pose. I lied. Rachel's voice came out breathless. Bob, what is this? 3 months ago, you walked into my restaurant broken, and I kissed you. He moved closer, taking her hands. I told myself it was impulse. Chivalry. But Rachel, the truth is I'd been watching you for weeks. Waiting for courage. Hoping you'd come back. You told me that already. I did. But I didn't tell you this. Bob took a shaky breath. I'm 52 years old. I've built an empire. I've been married and divorced. I've made every mistake a man can make in love. But standing here with you, I feel like I'm 16 again. Terrified and hopeful and absolutely certain that you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Rachel's eyes filled with tears. Bob. I'm not asking you to marry me, he said quickly. Not yet. Not until you're ready, if you're ever ready. But I am asking you to build a life with me. A real one. Where we're both whole, both strong, both free to be exactly who we are. He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and Rachel's heart stopped. This isn't an engagement ring, Bob continued, opening the box to reveal a delicate silver key on a chain. It's a key to this building. To the restaurant. To the rooftop where we first chose each other. His eyes met hers, storm gray and swimming with emotion. I want you to know that you always have a place here. In my business, in my life, in my heart. No conditions. No requirements. Just space. For you. For us. For whatever we're building together. Rachel's tears spilled over. You're giving me a key to your restaurant. I'm giving you proof that I mean what I say. That I see you, all of you, and I'm not going anywhere. His thumb brushed away her tears. You don't have to make yourself smaller for me, Rachel. I want all of you, the ambition, the drive, the tears at dog food commercials, the terrible reality TV. All of it. This is insane, Rachel whispered. Probably. Bob smiled, that boyish grin that transformed his face. But it's the good kind of insane. The kind that makes life worth living. Rachel looked at the key gleaming in the candlelight. Looked at this man who'd chosen her not despite her strength but because of it. Looked at the London skyline spread out around them, glittering with possibility. She thought about Marcus in her office earlier, broken and desperate, trying to reclaim what he'd thrown away. She thought about the woman she'd been 3 months ago, devastated, doubting, diminished. And she thought about who she was now. Who she was becoming. Yes, she said simply. Bob blinked. Yes to? All of it. The key. The life. The building something together. She stepped into his arms, feeling them close around her like coming home. You said when you see something worth reaching for, you reach. Well, I'm reaching, Bob. For this. For you. For us. His kiss was soft at first, reverent, but deepened quickly as 3 months of carefully controlled desire finally found release. Rachel melted into him, into this moment, into the beautiful, terrifying knowledge that she was choosing something real. When they finally broke apart, both breathless, Bob pressed his forehead to hers. "I'm going to make you so happy," he whispered. "You already have." Rachel smiled, truly smiled, the expression feeling natural again after so many months of forcing it. "But I'm going to make you happy too. That's how this works, right? We both choose each other, every day." "Every day," Bob agreed. "Even the hard ones. Especially the hard ones." They stood there as London sparkled around them, two people who'd found each other in the wreckage of their past mistakes. Not perfect. Not without scars. But whole. And together. Rachel thought about posting something on social media, a photo, a caption about second chances and new beginnings. But in the end, she left her phone in her purse. This moment wasn't for the world. It was just for them. Bob poured wine, the Malbec she'd been drinking that first night, she realized with a surge of tenderness, and they sat at the candlelit table talking until the candles burned low. About their dreams, their fears, the businesses they wanted to build and the life they wanted to share. And when Bob walked her home in the early morning hours, his hand warm in hers, Rachel realized something profound. Marcus hadn't broken her. He'd just made her forget, temporarily, how strong she was. But she remembered now. And she was never going to forget again. 6 months later, Rachel stood in the same conference room, but this time she wasn't alone. Emma sat beside her, now Bennett Marketing Solutions head of client relations. Jamie had been promoted to senior account manager. And the space had expanded to include 12 employees and a client roster that read like a who's who of London business. On her desk sat a framed photo from the restaurant's rooftop, her and Bob, foreheads pressed together, smiling like people who'd found their way home. Her phone buzzed with a text from Bob. "Lunch? I made something that's definitely not pretentious. Scout's honor." Rachel smiled, typing back, "Your cooking is always pretentious. I love you anyway." 3 dots appeared, then, "I love you too. See you in 20 minutes. And Rachel? I'm proud of you." She set down the phone, looking out at the London skyline, the same view from a different angle. Different office. Different woman. Different life. But the same city that had witnessed her lowest moment had also been there for her highest. And she was just getting started. Marcus had publicly embarrassed her that night in October. But Bob had stepped in. Had kissed her. Had chosen her. And in doing so, had helped her remember how to choose herself. That was the real happy ending. Not the millionaire. Not the viral moment. Not even the thriving business. But the woman who'd learned that she was worth fighting for. And would never settle for less again. Rachel transformed from a broken woman hiding in her flat to a confident business owner who faced her past with grace. What moment in your own life taught you that you were stronger than you thought? Share your story of resilience below. Your words might inspire someone who needs to hear them today. Thank you for following through this story. Please do well to like this video and subscribe for more emotional, real-life inspired stories. See you in the next story.